Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome, everyone. If you are watching me on this platform for your first time, please let me know where you're watching me from. My name is Yvette Takwe, and I'm your host here, going by the name The Thriving Immigrant Woman. This is a space created for everyone to rise, to thrive, and grow. My life stories here doesn't only reach out to immigrants, but reach out to people who see themselves as visionaries and who intend to better themselves. So I hope you have been having a good week, a good start of the year, and a great month. On that note, I want to give you out a shout out, a special welcome to all my first time watchers and my viewers and my followers. This is going to be a great 3 to 4 week session where we begin to dive into trauma. So, on that note, I want to say you're really welcome. Stay tuned and follow up with me. Trauma, and why trauma? I want us to understand that trauma is one of those things that a lot of people hide. Trauma is one of those things that a lot of people do not know how to go through, they do not know how to handle. Does it affect us? Yes, especially negatively. When you don't know how to heal from trauma, it can really affect you, and not only you, but the people around you and the things you do. That is why God laid upon my heart for me to talk about this topic, trauma. Now, if I have to define trauma, if you are watching me, what is trauma? Trauma is a psychological and emotional response to events or a series of events that are deeply distressing or disturbing and sometimes will overwhelm an individual. Why do I want to speak about trauma? The years 2019, 2020, with the COVID striking, it was very, very, very depressing to a lot of people and a lot of families. Now, not only COVID happening, but in our day to day work, in our day to day journey in life, we experience different things that are often most distressing, different things that make us feel like we are not who we are. And that is why I'm talking on trauma. And we're going to be looking at different types of trauma. And before we get into the different types of trauma, I want you to understand that trauma is not a weakness. Trauma is not a failure. Trauma is a human response to overwhelming experiences. Some people know how to handle it, and some people do not know how to handle it. And that is why we are here. Encourage each other so that we can use our pain, we can use our stories and turn them into joy, turn them into a place where we can inspire others. So, as we continue, we are going to be looking at the different types of trauma. What are the different types of trauma? But before we get into the different types of trauma, I want us first of all see how trauma presents itself. Trauma can present itself as abuse. And abuse could either be physical, emotional, or sexual abuse. Trauma can also present itself as neglect. Trauma can present itself in the form of violence or you experiencing a severe crime. Trauma could also show up as a sudden loss of a very loved one or a loved one or someone close to you. Trauma can also come in the form of a serious illness, unexpectedly you are diagnosed of cancer, or suddenly a family member is diagnosed of a deadly disease. Those are instances of trauma. We also talk of natural disasters. If you look around us, there are so many countries going through floods. There are so many countries going through wildfire incidents. There are so many countries going through landslide issues. Those are traumas because they didn't prepare for it, they didn't see it, and they did not know about it or they did not know that it was going to occur. What about accidents? Yes. What about the people that have been involved in accidents that they even lost loved ones with them? What about the people that have experienced accidents that they've not been able to still have all their body parts with them? Those are instances of trauma. And I want you to understand that trauma might have not only happened to you, but you may have witnessed another person go through it. And through that, guess what? It also affects you. So that is the most important reason why we should handle trauma and seek diverse ways of how we can heal and get past through these traumatic events. So on that note, let's move on to the second phase of this session, which is defining the three types of trauma, which I'm going to take you into. So stay tuned with me as we dive into the three categories of trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow ones, we are talking about trauma. And as we continue to talk about trauma, I want us to dive into the three types of trauma. I want you to understand that trauma presents itself in three types. It can be acute, it can be chronic, and it can be complex. Hey, for those who are asking, what is Yvette talking about? When I talk of acute trauma, remember before I had listed diverse ways in which trauma presents itself. We said through abuse, neglect, or even through accidents. So when we talk of chronic trauma or acute trauma is the instance or a situation in which you have just gone through one of these events. So it might just be an incident of an accident. It might just be one incident of you either losing a father, a mother, a daughter, or a loved one, or it might be just that incident of you experiencing a drastic landslide that took away all your property, took away all your family. And then when we move on to the phase of chronic trauma, this is not just one incident, but it's a series of multiple incidents. You've been in neglect, you've been in abuse, you've been in accidents, and you've been in difficult situations that you find yourself so difficult to pass through. So that is why we're going to call it chronic, because it keeps occurring, it's persistent, it's not just a single episode. And when we talk of complex trauma, this will be a mixture of acute and both chronic, making it complex. Complex meaning that it's typical. Complex meaning that it's not just that easy. Sometimes when I interview some of my friends and some of the mentors I want us to look up to, they will tell you sometimes that it's a difficult situation. I cannot just let it go. That is where it becomes complex. So you might have gone through abuse either in marriage or either in the household, and you've also been faced with a severe accident. So putting all that together, those are different instances that we need to manage and heal past through. So that makes it complex. If you have any questions while I'm moving on, just drop it and I'm going to go back and look at those questions and we will try to answer them and talk about it together. So while we have identified what trauma is, how trauma presents itself, and the three different types of trauma, I want you to understand that if you've been through any of these incidents, understand that you are not just alone. I want you to understand that God has made it available that we have people that can help you move past through this pain. And through that, we can turn our pain into purpose. And that is my main reason why I am here. That is the main reason why I keep showing us for both you, like I keep showing up for both you and I. So while we are moving ahead, I want to dig down into the Bible. Sometimes we feel like these things are not normal. Oh, I've gone through marital abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse in marriage. Oh, my parents abandoned me when I was a baby. Oh, I got involved in this accident. I lost a limb. I lost my sight. I lost my voice. I ended up being in the hospital in Trick. I want you to understand things do happen, which I do not blame you. It might have been your fault. But I want us to dive into the Bible because those are one of the books I hold so dear and I live up to. I seek my tenants from there. So I want us to look at trauma and look at some specific important characters in the Bible that went through trauma. And through that, we're going to look at their own life lessons, how they went through trauma. And through that, we're going to be instilling and using that to seek our way of survival and seek our way of healing. Have you been through any form of trauma? Let me know in the comment section, either a yes or a no. And the first lady I want us to look at when it comes to trauma in the Bible is our lady called Hagar. In Genesis chapter 16, what does the Bible tell us about Hagar? Hagar was the famous maid of Sarah. If you know the story of Abraham and Sarah, Sarah was that powerful woman of God, but she suffered one thing: infertility. While in her period of waiting, just like any other woman out there, we are worried. Why can I not bear children? I've been married for 15, 20, 50, 30 years, 5 years, 1 year, and I cannot have a child. Why? Just like you and I worrying like that, Sarah to worry. I should try to find solutions. And sometimes, guess what? We as believers, as children of God, we as just humans, we find help and we seek help and assistance in the wrong places. And just like Sarah, she was impatient, I want to say, but I don't want to label her impatient because if you've been through that situation, then you'll know how challenging and difficult it is. Coming to the fact that sometimes society wants to label us for who we are, saying we are barren, saying that we are unfit to be women because we are going through that period. Sarah had to seek help for her family. What did she do? She encouraged her husband. She said, "Hey, mom, I've not been able to give you any children. And what I want us to do is we cannot just leave our identity go like that. So I want you to go into my maid, Hagar, and see if we can have a child." And what did Abraham do? Sometimes we fall prey to those temptations. Sometimes we feel like we're getting the best advice from our spouses. He went into his maid. What happened? He got pregnant. And that is how Ishmael was born. But why do I bring the story of Hagar? Because Hagar went through trauma. What kind of trauma did Hagar go through? Through the trauma of rejection, displacement. But did she survive? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So because Abraham had gone into Hagar, and guess what? Hagar was to bear Ishmael. Guess what? Hagar did not now become the most famous servant anymore to Sarah. Oh, she showed off. Oh, I came into your house 1, 2 months, 3 months. Guess what? What you could not do, hey, I did it. I'm now pregnant. I'm not only pregnant, but I'm pregnant for the master. You can imagine how Sarah felt. Guess what? Sarah got upset. She's a human like you and I. Come into my house, I give you that opportunity, and now you're pregnant and you want to show up. Guess what she did? She sent Hagar away with her son into the wilderness. Oh, yes, Sarah did. And you say that is a woman of God. Yes, she has her own weaknesses. But guess what? I think if Hagar had just implemented a little bit of humility and remorse, it wouldn't have taken Sarah to do that. He sent Hagar into the desert. Imagine you, 2, 3 months old, a woman with your son in the desert. But did God show up for Hagar? Yes, God did show up for Hagar. So I want you to understand, if you've been through that situation, rejected, taunted, turn out, turn away, you feel like you're in your period of wilderness, I don't want you to give up because Hagar did not give up. The Bible says God saw Hagar in the wilderness and spoke to her. That is how she got direction. So don't feel like you're left alone. Don't feel like you're all alone in that mess. Yes, you made a mistake. Guess what? What we call a mistake is still the purpose of God. Have you seen single mothers who just like, I made a mistake, I didn't know what was going to happen? Through peer pressure, I had sexual intercourse just once and the baby came. It wasn't a mistake. God purposed it for something. So I want us never to always see it as a mistake, but to see it as God's way to either bring a solution into the world, or to use it for his own glory. Alright, moving on. Another important person, Hannah. The story of Hannah touched me so much. When I look at 1 Samuel, the chapters 1, reading from the verses 2 to 10, they say Hannah was going through a period like Sarah where she was infertile. But one thing I learned from the story of Hannah is he knew how to seek help. Guess what Hannah do? They said every year Hannah will go up to Shiloh. She will be praying for God to grant her a son. She'll be praying for God to bless her womb. That is how serious Hannah was. They said during this period, 1 year when Hannah went up to Shiloh, guess what? They said Hannah was in so much distress that she was praying, but you could not even hear her voice. She was just crying, she was just mumbling, and she was pouring out her heart. Guess what? Hannah went through that trauma too of infertility, shame, and silent grief. There was no way she could sit to speak among her peers because they will ask her, or they will tell her, you have nothing to show up for. And you guess what? That is why most of us don't heal from our trauma. Guess what? because we've been labeled, we've been given names: barren, infertile, witch. You're the one eating your children. And that is why we refuse to seek help in our trauma. He said, because God heard Hannah's voice, guess what? God granted her a request. In the subsequent series, we're going to be looking at the process of healing. What other ways can we seek help? What other ways can we seek healing? And just like I continue to say, you are not alone. Seek help in the right places. Talk to the right people. Don't just take it all into yourself. Number 3, Ruth and Naomi as a mother. When I look at the story of Ruth and Naomi, a woman who had left with her husband, going to seek greener pastures, just as some of us immigrants, we've left mother, father, husband, wife, children from our various countries, and we are migrating to Europe, to the United States, to other parts of the world to seek a better life. Ruth, Naomi, her husband, and her sons are migrated. Guess what happened? It wasn't what they expected. They said Naomi lost her husband and lost her 2 sons. Guess what? She was left with 2 daughter-in-laws. Got up one morning and said, what? It is time for us to go back because I came whole. Now I'm empty. On returning, all the people gathered to visit Naomi. Naomi, who was to be called pleasant, this was Naomi, broken, torn into pieces. What did Naomi say? Oh no, please do not call me Naomi. I'm no longer pleasant. Call me Mara because I am so bitter in my heart. A lot of us are bitter. You are asking God. I got into an accident. I lost my limb. I lost my sight. I lost my memory. What did I do? That is how bitter Naomi was. Should you drown in that trauma? No. Did Naomi give up? No. Guess what? She sought ways to help Ruth. And that is how she introduced Ruth to Boaz. And that is how she was blessed with a grandchild. I want to tell you, you might be bitter, but ask God in that situation. Now that I'm in this situation, where do you want me to go? Now that I'm in this situation, I feel like I'm drowning all by myself. How do you want me to proceed? What lessons do you want me to learn? Don't just stay stagnant. And the last person I want us to look at is our famous mother, the mother of Jesus Christ, Mary. Yes, Mary. You'll be asking me how Mary went through trauma. Let me tell you, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Imagine you, our young ladies growing up here. You're looking at your life so beautiful. I have a fiance. My wedding has been set for the next 6 months. Oh, Angel Gabriel appears and said, dear Mary, God has chosen you. You'll be pregnant with a son. And Mary is like, I have Joseph who Joseph is ready to walk me down the aisle. And you're saying I'll be pregnant when Joseph hasn't come into me, when Joseph haven't eaten the forbidden fruit. Guess what? Yeah, she was the chosen one. Did she go through trauma? Yes. Trauma of what? Shame. Trauma of what? Uncertainty. Trauma of what? Fear. Why was it uncertain? Ask herself, oh, Angel Gabriel, how is that going to be? You that one, asking yourself, even though God has given you a word that you're going to be famous, and you're asking yourself, oh God, this is me under age 15, 16, 17, not married, but I've already had 2 children out of wedlock. How is the world going to hear me? How is the world going to hear my story? How is the world going to see me? Am I going to still be that fit to lead women? Am I still going to be fit to lead my generation? That was Mary. I'm sure you know Mary's outcome. The reason why we celebrate Christmas. Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. She, in her moments of shame and uncertainty, no. She sought for help. Said even when Angel Gabriel had assured her, he went up to meet Elizabeth and said, Elizabeth, can you mentor me through this? You have been through trauma. You have been through accidents. You have been through difficult situations in that marriage. I want to tell you, there are mentors out there that can help. The world is waiting for your voice. The world is waiting to hear your story. And if you lock up that story in you because you feel like you're ashamed and because people are going to call you this, then you're not going to fulfill your purpose. But if we begin to seek help, if we begin to go to Shiloh to pour out our heart, if we begin to go through emotional therapy, if we begin to seek help through psychotherapy, if we begin to ask people, how can I regain my dignity? How can I regain myself? How can I regain my mind? How can I use my prosthetics now to run and win that marathon? Then you're not going to fulfill purpose. But if you use that path, God's voice will be heard through you. His voice will be heard through you. I give you that assurance. In the next episode, to hear my voice, I'll be sharing my journey with you. That's why I chose this episode to introduce us to trauma. Yes, trauma is real. Don't let that horrible accident make you drown in fear and uncertainty. The fact that you were abandoned by your father and mother, thrown by the roadside, it doesn't change your identity. Look for help. Find that identity and run with it. Yes. Give birth to 3 children in that abusive marriage, and now the man feels like he has to move on. Raise those children. That might be our president. That might be the savior of his generation tomorrow. Instill in them love. Still teach them how to be a better father. Teach them how to be a real man, so that tomorrow when they get married, guess what? They'll be able to handle their home better. And to you watching me, not only women go through trauma. Don't mind the fact that I presented just women. Men too are going through trauma. Yes. That same accident they have been through, and they said I can never get into that car again. Yes, they go through trauma. So as we are here, sharing, looking forward to build ourselves. If you find yourself in that situation and you feel like you don't know how to seek help, I want you, email me privately. Use my email, thethrivingimmigrantwoman@gmail.com. Send me a personal message, send me a personal text. Have a group of mentors, a group of therapists. I can bring in spiritual fathers that will mentor us too. You are loving this and you are following with me. Please don't hesitate to share with others. Don't hesitate. Encourage others to follow the songs with me once we engage in trauma. I want to thank you so much for giving me a listening ear. I am your host, Yvette Taku, here at the Thriving Immigrant Woman, bringing you success life stories, not only of immigrants, from people who are willing to share their stories to encourage you. As you engage in your activities in your week, take out time to reflect and let's work together. Thank you. I love you and stay tuned, for this is the Thriving Immigrant Woman.